plants, I think, are the best way to go because we get little 4-inch annuals for $1.29. We can plant a lot of artichokes for that. Each plant may produce, they'll produce one great big artichoke out of the center, and then maybe it'll produce 6 or 8, 10 smaller artichokes. So it's a really nice vegetable to plant. This vegetable garden, I think, like Rosina said, it was the first garden. It wasn't always in this kind of structure, but it's the first garden that we had out here after we moved here. It's probably the most difficult garden because it's all annuals pretty much. You know, we have one perennial out here, which is asparagus, that we don't have to replant year after year and season after season. So it's probably takes the most work of any garden that we have. Last fall we started doing square foot gardening. This is a system developed by Mel Bartholomew, who lives up in Utah, and it's been very successful for us. Generated a huge amount of attention. We did a class in November. I think we had 325 people showed up, and so it's been a learning process for us. And this is the first time we've done a warm season, and so we're still trying to figure out what, you know, the best method of all that. But we've experimented with all our different soils, and everything is done real well for us.
So this is part of our health plan as employees of the Natural Gardener. We get to pick from the garden on our lunch break sometimes if we get permission.
It's a pretty big perk for us to have all these organic vegetables that we can fix our lunches and take home for dinner and stuff like that. I don't know if you, the older I get, the more important I realize that it's eating fresh and local is real important, you know.
And thank goodness that's catching on.
Going to the farmer's market, you know, eating vegetables that are grown in a short distance away from here. By the time something's trucked in from California, it usually has lost a lot of the health benefits, you know, of eating healthy vegetables. There's an enzyme, a water soluble enzyme called coenzyme Q10. I think 30 minutes after a plant is picked, it disappears, and that's one enzyme that regenerates the body cells. So it's gotten a lot of attention in the started back maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So it's real important to eat fresh and local.
Probably better to eat it, that coenzyme Q10 in your foods than in that supplement they're selling now, right?
Did you use the same soil in all the...
No, we used different soils. Those first 4 boxes back there, we wanted to do a test. We were testing our soils against Mel Bartholomew's, which his mix is 1/3 compost, 1/3 vermiculite, and 1/3 peat moss. And we wanted to test our Rose Magic and our Hill Country soil against his blend to see, and they all did pretty much equally, you know, the same. And right now we're developing this box. You see a tabletop garden, which is really nice when it's raised up. This is a brand new mix that we put in here yesterday. And this box over here and this one with the parsley had a mix that we were going to try to bag as a square foot mix. And they are 50% revitalizer compost and 25% vermiculite and peat moss each. And it did great. We decided it was a little too costly maybe. So now we've gone back and instead of the peat moss, it's the same formula, we're using coconut fibers. That's what's in this instead of peat moss. You can see this right here. It's very light. It'll darken up after it gets wet. But I think this is going to be a great mix. And so today we'll be putting plants in here, and we should know in about a month how it's performing. So hopefully by this fall we will have a square foot garden mix bag that'll be approved by Mel Bartholomew. To call it square foot garden mix, we're going to have his approval, you know. But hopefully we'll have it. So all you got to do is come out here and buy bags of the mix and go home and yeah, Central Texas version.
Now, in your beds here, do they have any drainage, or is there like some kind of barrier between the ground and the box?
All the beds on the ground are bottomless. There's no barrier. They're sitting right on top of the ground. Last fall, when we switched out and pulled out the broccolis and the cabbages out of these beds over here, nothing had gone down below this 6 inches into the subsoil.
Wow.
So it just shows you can grow in this depth just about anything you want. This bed has a wooden bottom with holes drilled in it for drainage. But
A lot of people ask, do you need to add fertilizer to Mel's mix?
no, it has the compost. He wants you to use maybe 5 or 6 different types of compost, maybe humor, manure compost, whatever. But he wants you to have that 1/3 compost to be a blend of several different kinds of compost, so you're getting a wide range of nutrients.
And did you find that to be true here? Because I've heard customers come and give me feedback that their plants just sit there without without fertilizer.
No, not at all. That box did great. It did as well as any of the other ones.
It's amazing. I
And
wonder what the difference is.
no, we didn't. Initially, we didn't add anything to do it straight. We just wanted to see how it performed, and everything did great.
That
Now,
must be the magic factor of the natural gardener, I think.
well, maybe. Well, they get daily attention, So.
Yeah.
I used 50% Rose Magic and 50% Revitalizer, and it did great. And then
No
used a
additional
little John's
fertilizer.
recipe once in a while, foliant, but we did very well this year.
Well, to see a parsley look like that in the middle of summer,
Yeah,
full sun, it's pretty unusual. And I think that's the 50% for revitalizer compost and 25% vermiculite and peat in that box. I think it's pretty cool. I think this is going to perform real well too.
From reading his book, I think he stressed when you replant, put the compost in it, not the first.
Now, every time you pull a plant out, you harvest the plant from a square, you replenish that square with compost. So that's kind of important. You can't just have it not add something to it, but you're replenishing the compost in the squares each time. So.
I really can't tell the difference between the Rose Magic and the Hill Country. I mean, what is supposed to be the difference?
Well, the Rose Magic should be a little more acidic. It has the haydite, the expanded shell, and the Hill Country has granite. So your granites has a little more mineral probably content to it. The Rose Magic, I think, has more sand, has some play sand maybe, and it has the pine humus for the acid.
I think the Hill Country may have a little more topsoil total.
But they've all done very well for us as a growing medium for vegetables.
What about herbs?
Herbs, we put some manual herbs, basil and stuff in these boxes. You can look at them and see there's not a lot of difference in the plants.
So you'd use either for herbs?
I'd use either.
You can.
Yeah.
About the main difference we found with some of these blends is some of them went through their cycle more quickly. They started flowering before some of the other ones, or something like that. But we just didn't see a whole lot of difference.
Something that Lucinda said in her talk last week that made a lot of sense is that the growers of basil nowadays are not starting by seed, they're starting by cuttings, and because of that, the basil's going to seed faster, or to flower faster. So that made a lot of sense.
Yeah, a lot of times when you buy a little 4-inch basil plant, you plant it, boom, it's flowering almost instantly.
Yeah.
So the plant never has a chance to get nice and big. Basil should be this tall, by midsummer. One plant, if you kept pinching the tops out and it doubles, it provides you all the basil you would need. But a lot of times they just won't do it because they're pushed.
What's the plant back there with the purple and the edge of the fruit?
That's an eggplant. Yeah. It's called neon.
Oh, wow, beautiful.
And pick some off, there were a lot